want to thank the organizers of this second AIMS conference for their hard work in creating such a well-organized virtual event. I especially thank Meredith Safran and Dan Curley and all of the officers and technical staff, as well as the moderator of this session, Annette Baertschi, for making the conference and our session so interesting, thought-provoking, and stimulating. I'm delivering this paper without video of me because I'm recovering from eye surgery. After Caesar defeated the Gallic king of the Arverni, Vercingetorix, at Alesia in 52 BCE, he brought the conquered leader back to Rome, where Caesar paraded his defeated foe in his triumph in 46 BCE before the entire Roman population. Caesar produced a number of denarii, the standard coin of Rome, showing a portrait of what was almost certainly Vercingetorix in profile, striking with his wild, unkempt hair, long mustache, and gaunt features, struck by the moneyer Lucius Hostilius Cicerna in 48 BCE. These images and coins that were minted numerously and distributed widely gave the Roman public an up-close and personal view of the visage of one of Rome's quintessential enemies. They greatly contributed to Caesar's increasing prestige and renown during the power struggle that engulfed Italy after he crossed the Rubicon and returned to Rome in 49 BCE, the year before the Vercingetorix coin was minted. Gaul, meanwhile, became several Roman provinces. Its citizens became Roman citizens in 212 CE, and these provinces remained strongholds of Roman power until the gradual dissolution of the empire beginning in the 4th and 5th centuries CE. Caesar's Roman denarii did not actually name Vercingetorix on the coins, and so his name only existed in Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic War, Bellum Gallicum. But in 1837, the third issue of Revue de la Numismatique Françoise, founded in 1836, featured on its cover the first ancient coin discovered, inscribed with the name of Vercingetorix. The publication of this coin in a journal devoted to numismatics speaks to the growing interest in numismatics as a field worthy of collection, organization, and scientific study in the 19th century. It also reflects the increasing archaeological discoveries of the 19th century that fueled such numismatic work. But the journal also publicized the ancient Vercingetorix to a society looking for national heroes and a century in which national identity was being formed and shaped by symbols, history, and myth. The coin featured in the review is a gold Gallic coin, likely minted by Vercingetorix himself in 52 BCE, that shows a classicized male bust on the obverse and a horse on the reverse, and so is almost certainly not an accurate depiction of Vercingetorix himself. But its discovery and its Gallic, as opposed to Roman origin, fueled great interest in Vercingetorix as an authentic Gaul. Images of the actual man could be drawn from Caesar's coins, increasingly accessible in French coin cabinets. This is another example of Lucius Hostilius Cicerna's denarius of 48 BCE, but taken from a different obverse die, though the basic features of Vercingetorix are the same. The marble Roman copies of the Hellenistic bronze statues of Gauls, the dying Gaul, the Gaul killing his wife and himself, were on view in Rome and show similar Gallic features as the Roman coins do. Thus, Napoleon used the regal lineage of Vercingetorix to support and further his own imperial ambitions during the Second French Empire by erecting a monumental statue of Vercingetorix near the battle site of Alesia in 1865. He commissioned this 7-meter-tall, about 21 feet, statue of Vercingetorix from the sculptor Aimé Millet. The architect for the memorial as a whole was Eugène Viollet-le-Duc. An inscription on the base, written by Viollet-le-Duc and copied from the famous words of Julius Caesar in Bellum Gallicum, reads, La Galle unie formant une seule nation, animée d'un même esprit, peut défier l'univers. Gaul united, forming a single nation, animated by a common spirit, can defy the universe. Responding to public outcry over representing a resigned Vercingetorix at the location of his final defeat, Auguste Bartholdi, shortly thereafter, created a second statue of Vercingetorix on horseback crushing a Roman soldier for placement in Clermont-Ferrand, near the site of Gergovia, where Vercingetorix had triumphed over Caesar earlier in 52 BCE, before falling to the Romans in Alesia in September of that year. This map of Vercingetorix's Gaul shows the location of Gergovia in the Arverni territory of Vercingetorix, now the Auvergne. Note that Gergovia is south of the Gauls' final defeat with Romans at Alesia later in 52 BCE. The Gauls pulled back to the north in order to consolidate their forces in the hope of beating the Romans finally and decisively at Alesia. Théodore Chassériau echoed this more triumphalist view of Vercingetorix with his painting of 1855, La Défense des Galles par Vercingetorix, or The Defense of Gauls by Vercingetorix. Likewise, François-Émile Hermann created the painting Vercingetorix Calls the Gauls to the Defense of Alesia in 1869, showing Vercingetorix not after, but rather before the Battle of Alesia, when the Gauls were still basking in the victory of Gergovia earlier in 52 BCE and confident of another victory. Note that in this painting, Vercingetorix is shown round-faced, clean-shaven, and with curly hair. This is the only example of an artist using the image on the Gallic Vercingetorix coin to portray the leader himself. Most prefer to use the non-classicizing portrait seen on the Roman coin, taking on the features the Romans considered coarse and brutal, and making them a badge of honor for the French. France's unnecessary triggering of the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and its self-inflicted, humiliating defeat several months later was a watershed moment for its national pride and identity. Wolfgang Schivelbusch, in his book of 2013, The Culture of Defeat, on National Trauma, Mourning, and Recovery, discusses the psychological dislocations and distortions a people and a nation will go through to rationalize defeat and humiliation. In the case of France in 1870, its art conveyed that dislocation and rationalization as well. Bertoldi had responded to the French desire to see Vercingetorix victorious over against the Romans by turning to a different battle for his sculpture, the successful Battle of Gergovia. But with an actual recent defeat at the hands of their current nemesis, the Germans, the humiliated French spirit and soul required even more psychologically nuanced efforts at myth-making. Thus, the later 19th century French painters and sculptors focused on transforming Vercingetorix's defeat at Alesia into a virtual victory, no doubt reflecting the psychological need for such a transformation from actual defeat to virtual victory in the cascading consequences of France's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War in 1870. In a sculpture by Émile François Chartreuse of 1870, an amplified display of nationalism placed Vercingetorix clasping hands in unity with Joan of Arc, another icon of French history and mythology. The original plaster sculpture still exists, located in the museum in Clermont-Ferrand, but a full-scale monument erected in 1872 in the town of Ham on the Somme, north of Paris, between that city and Lille, was destroyed during World War I. A similar large martyrs monument relief of 1884, also by Chartreuse, amplifies the drama of the pairing of Vercingetorix with Joan of Arc even further by having a life-size helmeted winged Victory hovering over the pair and holding laurel branches of victory for each. The widespread recognition of Vercingetorix as a national hero, particularly post-1870, is also reflected in the spread of large-scale statues of the Gallic warrior. Saint-Germain-en-Laye, west of Paris, erected in 1872 a reduction in stone of the Aimé Millet original statue at Elysia. Gien, south of Paris on the Loire, boasted in 1887 a statue of Vercingetorix by Françoise Mouy. An over-life-size statue of Vercingetorix, a copy of the François Mouy statue in Gien, was erected in Bordeaux in Western France in 1890. It took pride of place in one of the town's main squares until it was removed and melted down by the Vichy regime in 1942. Saint-Denis, east of Paris, erected a Vercingetorix statue by Jules Bertin in 1890. This statue was also removed and melted down by the Vichy regime in 1942. The attempts of the Vichy regime to suppress and erase French nationalism by removing statues of Vercingetorix during World War II renewed and propelled national sentiments and icons after the war. There was also a 1911 statue of Vercingetorix by Victor Ségoffin in the Pantheon in Paris. Smaller statues of Vercingetorix also became popular, such as those made by Émile Laporte between 1875 and 1899. In Henri Paul Mott's Vercingetorix Surrenders of 1892, a disdainful Vercingetorix in full armor and astride a horse looks down on Roman soldiers as he prepares to drop his weapons before approaching Caesar, slouching the far distance on a red daze. Lionel Royer's famous painting of 1899, Vercingetorix throws down his arms at the feet of Julius Caesar, likewise shows the proud Gaul looking down from his horse on the Roman general lounging decadently in a chair at his feet. Both paintings mythologize and iconize Vercingetorix as the ultimate victor in the Battle of Gaul, France, with its enemies, whether Romans or Germans. Similar engravings of Vercingetorix's meeting with Caesar are found in popular French history books of the period, such as François Guizot's Histoire de la France of 1872. And there also arose a cottage industry of books about Vercingetorix himself, such as François Coréard, Vercingetorix ou la chute de l'indépendance galloise, Vercingetorix or the fall of Gallic independence of 1884. Medalists likewise turned their attention to Vercingetorix. The little-known 19th century medalist, perhaps the artist better known for his paintings, Jean-Joseph Jules de Fer, produced a magnificent medal pairing Vercingetorix on the obverse with the 4th century BC Gallic leader Brennus on the reverse. Brennus, almost 250 years before Vercingetorix, led an army of Gauls in an attack on Rome itself in 390 BCE and succeeded in holding the city hostage for several weeks. The Capitoline itself would have been taken if not for the cackling of the sacred geese of Juno that woke the Roman guards. In desperation, the Romans finally offered the Gauls 1,000 pounds of gold as a bribe to leave the city. Bertoldi himself, in 1903, made a bronze medal showing his famous sculpture of Vercingetorix on the obverse with the patriotic words on the reverse, à la gloire de l'Auvergne, d'où surgit le premier cri de patriotisme sur le sol de France. to the glory of the Auvergne, whence rose the first cry of patriotism on the soil of France. The particular Bartholdi medal shown here does not have the inscription on the reverse, but most other examples do. And then, of course, the gold coin published in 1837 and likely minted by Vercingetorix himself in 52 BCE became a very popular item to collect. In 1879, Alfred Danicourt of Herein, north of Paris, between that city and Lille, wrote to a friend about, quote, a gold Vercingetorix that cost me an arm and a leg, unquote, that he had just purchased, showing on the obverse a male in profile with Vercingetorix around and a horse on the reverse. Danicourt himself considered this coin one of his prize objects, and when he died, he left the coin to the City Museum of Péronne, where it still resides today as one of the jewels of the city's collection. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th century, Vercingetorix entered popular culture and the media mainstream as well. Widely circulated items, such as thread boxes and trading cards, depicted his image. The chocolate company Herein issued very popular Vercingetorix trading cards, as did the chocolate company Chocolat d'Aiguebelle. Note the use of the Royer painting composition. An advertisement from 1923 touts the healthful properties of Vercingetorix spring water from Vichy. Cufflinks of the Gallic Vercingetorix coin in reproduction, one from the Cabinet des Médailles, were widely sold. The restaurant Nos Ancêtres les Gallois, our ancestors the Gauls, in Paris, offers Gallic-style food and furnishings with service staff in full costume. As the film industry grew, Vercingetorix became one of the earliest action heroes in a 1909 short, Vercingetorix, that presented the Gaul as a larger-than-life warrior fighting for his country and for civilization as a whole. There is also a 2001 French-English full-length movie, Vercingetorix Druide. Note again the use of the Royer painting composition. Post-World War II France presented perhaps the most memorable depiction of the ancient Gauls with the introduction in 1959 of the Asterix comic book series. Quote, all Gaul is divided into 3 parts. No, 4, for one small village of indomitable Gauls still holds out against the Roman invaders. We are in the year 50 BC. All of Gaul is occupied by the Romans. All? No. A village populated by indomitable Gauls daily and continually resists the invader. And life is not easy for the garrisons of Roman legionaries at the encampments of Babaorum, Aquarium, Laudanum, and Pettibonum, unquote. With these immortal words, the comic book series Asterix was launched in France and has remained wildly popular there and elsewhere ever since. Riffing off of the first lines of Caesar's famous Gallic Wars, it spoofs and upends Rome's domination of Gaul as it portrays the Gauls endlessly outsmarting their erstwhile conquerors. Note, once again, the use of the Royer painting composition. The most recent in the series, La Fille de Vercingetorix, the daughter of Vercingetorix, is an expansion on the storyline, who knew Vercingetorix had a daughter, and a nod to the feminist Me Too movement. It was published in 2019. Vercingetorix became a national hero in France, not just around the battle sites, commercially successful in popular culture, but also an important symbol in educational and national politics. Posters featuring Vercingetorix filled classrooms as French history expanded to include history before Charlemagne, all the way back to Vercingetorix, and the Gallic tribes in their monumental battles with Caesar. As the tension between nationalism and imperialism has come to the fore in the 21st century, France and other Western nations have had to grapple with issues of national aspirations, cultural heritage restorations, and the consequences of colonial power. In this context, the 2002 novel, Les Petites Filles Nègres de Vercingetorix, The Black Grandsons of Vercingetorix, of Alain Mambancourt, a French citizen born in the former French colony of the Republic of Congo, reconfigures Vercingetorix as a rebel leader of an imaginary African nation. In this telling, this African Vercingetorix fights as the leader of the group, trying to oust another imperialistic Roman force in a location where the French themselves are actually the imperialists. Perhaps mirroring the ambiguity of this novel, a recent poster of Vercingetorix copies the famous Obama Hope poster of Shepard Fairey, with just the word Vercingetorix below the image. Vercingetorix revived in the 19th century to represent both the expansionist hopes of the Napoleonic successors and the nationalistic aspirations of a France newly independent of the Bourbon kings, has shifted identity over the centuries to popular hero, media icon, and interrogating figure of modern France. Thank you.